Today's lesson is 8.4, Fraction and Whole Number Division. Essential question, how can you divide fractions by solving a related multiplication sentence?
All right, let's unlock the problem now. 3 friends share 1/4 pound block of fudge equally. What fraction of a pound of fudge does each friend get? So we have 1/4 of a block of fudge, and we've got our 3 friends. So let the rectangle represent the 1 pound block of fudge, and we're going to divide the rectangle into fourths, and then we're going to divide each fourth into 3 equal parts. So the rectangle will now be divided into. So if I were to take these and divide them into the thirds like it says, right, so I have 3 parts, then that means I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I would have 12 equal parts. When you divide 1/4 into 3 equal parts, you are finding one of 3 equal parts, or 1/3 of 1/4. So we're going to shade 1/3 of 1/4. Well, these are my fourths, right? And I broke them up into thirds, so I needed to shade one of them. So let's shade 1/3 of 1/4. So the shaded part is actually representative of 1/12 of the whole rectangle. So each friend is going to get 1/12 pound of fudge. Let's read the next example. Brian has 9 pounds of ground turkey to make turkey burgers for a picnic. How many 1/3 pound turkey burgers can he make? So we're going to divide 9 divided by 1/3. So we're going to draw 9 rectangles to represent the pounds of ground turkey. So there's my 9, right? There's my 9 to represent the ground turkey. And I'm going to divide each of those into thirds to show the 3. So let's do that. So I'm dividing each of these into thirds. They should be equal parts, but I'm not drawing them very well. Sorry about that. Okay, so when you divide them, when you divide the 9 rectangles into thirds, you're finding the number of thirds in 9 rectangles. And finding the 9 groups of 3, there are going to be 27 thirds because I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, and 27. So there's 27 thirds. So let's complete the number sentence. So Brad can make 27 1/3 pound turkey burgers. So 9 divided by 1/3 is the same as 9 times 3, which is 27. So if I'm looking here, it says, will the number of turkey burgers be less or greater than 9? Well, it was definitely greater than 9. All right, let's connect. You've learned how to use a model and write a multiplication sentence to solve a division problem. Let's look at the examples. We have 1/4 divided by 2 equals 1/8. 1/2 times 1/4 equals 1/8. So we have a representative here of that. And then we have B, which is 4 divided by 1/2 equals 8, and 4 times 2 also equals 8. So looking at the example in A right here, describe how the model shows that dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by 1/2. Well, if I'm looking at it, the model shows that 1/4 divided into 2 equal groups is 1/8. And it also shows that 1/2 of 1/4 is 1/8. So let's look at example B. Looking at example B, it says describe how the model that shows dividing by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2. Well, the model that shows that there are 8 halves in 4 wholes, and it shows that there are 4 groups of 2 is 8. So you can kind of see that here. So when you divide whole numbers, the quotient is always less than the dividend. For example, the quotient for 6 divided by 2 is less than the quotient for 2 divided by 3. It is less than 2. So we're going to complete this, try this, and we're going to learn how the quotient compares to the dividend when you divide fractions and whole numbers. So try this. For the 2 expressions below, which will have the quotient that is greater than the dividend? And we're going to explain. So we have 1/2 divided by 3, and then we have 3 divided by 1/2. Well, the answer is 3 divided by 1/2 is going to, 3 is going to have a greater dividend. Since my quotient represents the number of parts the halves make up the whole numbers, 3, the number of parts will be greater than the whole number. So when I divide, let me move this. So when I divide a fraction by a whole number, the quotient of the dividend, or the quotient is less than the dividend. And when I divide a number by a fraction, the quotient is greater than the dividend. All right, so let's use the model to complete the number sentence. We have 2 divided by 1/4, which is the same thing as saying 2 times 4 equals 8. Let's look at the next one. Over here we have 1/6 divided by 2, which is the same thing as 1/2 times 1/6, which is 1/12. Okay, let's do one more. So we have 3 divided by 1/4, which is the same thing as saying 3 times 4, which equals 12. Okay, the algorithm that I learned when I was a kid, I'll do on the next ones. So what we used to do is we used to put a 1 under the whole number, and instead of making this be a division, we would actually make it be a multiplication, and then we would do the inverse. So we would say 1/5 times, and then the inverse is 1/4. So the answer is 1 over 20. Okay, so again, I'm going to put my 1 underneath. I'm going to make this a multiplication. I have to flip this one, so I have 1 over 9 times 1 over 3, which is 1/27. And then again, I'm going to put my 1 underneath, change this to a multiplication, do my inverse, so this will be 2 over 1. So I have 7 over 1 times 2 over 1, which is 14 over 1, or 14 wholes. All right, so the rest is up to you. I'm going to be on the carpet if you need any help. You can also work with a partner. Good luck.